historian. Of course, our historian is Mary Douglas. Historian is preserved and use of historical records of the church. Being especially concerned with gathering and preserving available church records, recording full and accurate records, and using records to help members understand and appreciate their heritage and mission. So, you know, the historian is an important position because, you know, years later, we're going to look back and there will be some things that you kind of want to remember as a church ages. You know, I was pastor, first church I ever pastored was Cedar Grove, and it was the oldest church in the association. It was established 1811, and so they've got a lot of history, and I love history. If you go to Corinth Baptist or Council, a few years ago, their pastor left. They're an older congregation, and their pastor had left. And so I went over with Larry Burton and met with the church. And I said, Rosedale will help you. I said, we will keep somebody in your pulpit if you want to work with us. So we did. What that done was we had a few young men coming into the ministry out of our church, and it became a training ground for us, is essentially what happened. And it worked out great. Matthew Hutchison had spent a summer over there. We would use Jacob Dow over there. Brandon Knuckles is now the pastor there. We would use deacons and just different ones. I would go over there from time to time and speak. And it became a wonderful relationship. Well, there's a lot of history in that church. Has anybody ever heard of Helen Henderson? What do you know about Helen Henderson? There's a highway named after her.
Her house is the library in that, and
Her house is the library in Hollander. Does anybody know anything else? Helen Henderson was a missionary with Virginia Baptist. And she come to this area. There was a school in Council. Virginia Baptist run a Christian school in Council. It's up behind where the present day Corinth Baptist Church is. And I didn't know all that. And I found that because Corinth has been really good about keeping records. I went over there for 2 days and just went through records after I found this out. I mean, and just reading history. It's amazing. But Helen Henderson Highway, that's what most people think about Helen Henderson, but she was a Virginia Baptist missionary. And that's Corinth Baptist Church was significant in getting education into the council area and educating. And after I learned all this, I come back to the church and I was astonished. And I can't remember if it was a Wednesday night service, but anyway, I got to talking and Miss Joyce Lambert, a lot of y'all know Miss Joyce, she said, that's where I went to school. And just seeing the impact that work had on our area was pretty neat. So that's why history is important, or the historian. Greeters, of course, greeters you will find in the lobbies. Hopefully you'll find them with a smile on their face. You know, COVID really changed a lot of that with greeting and, you know, the handshakes and the hugging. And so those are the people that are in the lobby. They're the face of the church oftentimes. You know, a lot of statistics will tell you that the first 3 minutes, in 3 minutes you've decided whether you're going to return back to visit that church. The first 3 minutes. Where are you at the first 3 minutes when you visit church? Number one, you're in a parking lot. And if you walk fast enough, you may make it to the foyer. But those areas are determining how friendly people are. If you see people coming through the parking lot from the church, most, you know, in our area it's a little different because most people know everybody. They may not know you personally, but they know a brother or a sister. That's so-and-so's boy or girl, or, you know, they know you to speak to you. So, but greeters are important. VBS director. VBS director kind of plans, coordinates, and carries out Vacation Bible School. That's pretty much self-explanatory. Educational literature. All education will be by the Southern Baptist Convention literature. Be approved by the pastor, deacon, body, and program director prior to being here. All right, church staff, pastor, this is, y'all got all this. Diane, here to shepherd the flock, perform pastoral responsibilities, lead the worship, proclamation, education, and pastoral ministries. I have no voting power. I can't vote on anything. And so when we look at that, I was probably pastor here. We talk about membership a lot in this class, but I was probably pastor here 3-4 months before I was actually a member here. And I hadn't even thought about it. We were getting ready to go to Southern Baptist Convention. We come in first Sunday in April. Southern Baptist Convention's in May, so 3 months. April, May, June, and we were here, and we were in Wednesday night Bible study. It used to be we had Wednesday night Bible study right in here. There was about 10 of us, 8 or 10 of us on Wednesday night, but we were in Bible study, and Larry Burton says, if you're going to Southern Baptist Convention, you plan on voting at the convention as a messenger, he said, you better become a member. And I was like, yeah, I ain't done that yet. So we joined on Wednesday night. Should a vacancy occur, the responsibility of the deacons to fill the pulpit until personnel committee presents an interim or a pastoral candidate. Personnel committee will bring consideration to church only one person, one man at a time, and their recommendations will constitute the nomination according to the policy established by the church. So, should a vacancy occur in the pastoral role, only one man at a time can be considered. You can't have 3 or 4 lined up. You consider one person at a time, and they vote yea or nay. Election will be by ballot, by 3/4 or 75% of the voting being necessary to extend the call to ask that pastor to come. I will be here as long as you allow me to be, and I want to be, and God sees fit for me to be. There's no review, there's no kind of, should I do something grossly negligent, and the personnel committee says, you've done this or whatever, if we can't do that, or if, I decide that my work here is done and it's time for me to move on, then I can make that decision. If I do that, I have to give you 30 days, give the church 30 days written notice, and if the church for some reason asks me to leave, they would present me with a severance package, and they could fire me immediately if need be. A written and signed document containing the terms and conditions of approval agreed upon at time of employment will be kept on file in the church office. Of course, I'm the first full-time pastor at Rosedale, and I come in this by vocation. But it's kind of funny when I come in and we look at that on my hiring unit, talks about this should be documented. When they hired me, I got the way it was written, I got a week the first year I was here, a week's vacation. I didn't have to wait any amount of time for to take a vacation or whatever, but they give me a week. Well, the way it's stated, I get a week a year. So I've been here 10 years, so I get 10 weeks vacation. Well, that ain't gonna hard to fly. But we were laughing one day about how it was written, and that Nora Burton was the chairperson of the pulpit committee, and I said she done me the best favor she could ever do, because by my letter, by my contract, I get a week for every year. She said, you know that ain't how that works, but it's just kind of funny. Associate pastor will assist the senior pastor in pastoral duties, responsibilities, being under the direct supervision of the pastor. Senior pastor shall direct the associate pastor in his daily activities. The associate pastor will attend committee meetings in the absence of the pastor and is a non-voting member. In the absence, vacation, sickness, etc., the senior pastor, associate pastor shall resume the duties and responsibilities of the senior pastor. So if I'm not here, that throws Clyde into the senior pastor role.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
I just wanted to clear up something I thought was the
Yeah.
case, but I don't know if it's true. And then when you were talking about it, you kind of went back and forth between man and person. Can women hold pastoral roles in
No.
the Baptist church?
No.
I thought that was the case.
That is the case, and after I said person or whatever, I realized that. and I got
That's just a big difference for what I grew up
It
with, so I
is.
just wanted to clear that up.
It is, yeah. Yep. Now, I want to educate you while you're here. In a lot of our, in some, I don't say a lot, in some of our Baptist churches, we are starting to see women pastors. And that is something that is, you're seeing more and more of. The closest one here is Nicholsfield. Nicholsfield has an associate pastor that is a woman. And I want to say St. Paul Baptist. Now, this may not be 100% accurate because this is one of those grapevine things, but St. Paul Baptist is considered a woman pastor as a senior pastor. They just recently made a hire as for the full pastor, and I think they actually looked at the associate pastor at Nicholsfield.
I don't want to show my scriptural ignorance here, but what is the basis of that?
The basis of that, the main basis of that, of course, is where is Paul, the Apostle Paul, was talking about. It says, let women remain silent in the church. And she needs to know or speak, and she's to talk to her husband, and that's how it's supposed to go. Of course, Paul again also in Timothy talks about the husband of one wife, and so therefore, in order to be the husband of one wife, the husband is the one that can fill that role. When you look at that, and of course, within the Baptist works, we as Baptists have celebrated Lottie Moon, Helen Henderson, Annie Armstrong. We celebrate women in ministry, but we've always took a platform of them not filling a pastoral role. And we also look at that as the husband should be the head of the household. And if the husband is the head of the household, therefore the husband needs to be the head of the church. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I know coming out of the Methodist church, that's not kind of the role that you used to, but that's kind of our basis.
I know when we had community services.
There's a service,
Thank you.
Hill Cream.
I'm from the flag.
I'm bringing cream.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to cut?
I know that when we
Okay,
had
black or cream?
community services, or I think it was specifically the Thanksgiving service, and it used to be all the churches came together, and one of, the churches took turns, and it was a female pastor, and there was a lot of churches that didn't come.
And I think that's a shame,
Yeah.
me personally.
Yeah.
I think that's a shame. And I don't want to sound awful or male chauvinist, or I don't feel comfortable with a woman pastor, I don't. But in a ecumenical social situation like that, I'm not going to, and there was some pastors within our association, within town churches, that told their churches, we're not to support this. I was there when a lot of that was going on, and it kind of, I'm not going to sit under that but can I,
Partake and be okay
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
For that type
for
of
that,
event.
for that type
Yeah,
of event?
right.
I think we have to be mature enough, I don't know if that's the right word, but to look at that and say, you know, I can work with that. You know, to look at that and say, you know, I should be able to get up in Rosedale Baptist Church and say, listen, I think it was it Presbyterian that had the Presbyterian, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Presbyterian that had the female ministry. And I think they were going to host it at the Methodist Church.
It was at, yeah, it was at
Yep.
the Methodist Church.
And
That's
so-
why I remember it being
Yeah.
a thing.
So, you know, I should be able to get up in front of our congregation and say, listen, I'm going, you can go next Sunday, we're back, you know, it's back, it's a community event. We're not all gonna, we don't, I mean, that's why you have Baptist and
Yeah,
Methodist.
we don't agree every
Yeah,
Sunday
we don't.
anyway. Right.
Yeah, so, but we've got to work together.
As long as the church on each corner.
That's why there's a church on each corner.
That don't mean we're any less.
No,
Am I?
no, I don't.
It's not like a deal breaker for me that is how the Baptist church is.
Right.
I didn't know, I knew that to be the case, but I never really had it explained to me or, you know, why it was.
Yeah, I'm not one of those that are dyed in the wool, we're not participating.
Yeah.
I think it's immaturity. You know, I mean, that's just, am I gonna sit under a female pastor? No. Unless the Lord, unless it just, you know, the Lord leads me to that, but I can respect them, you know, in their role. You know, we work, I'm the president of the Ministerial Association. We're looking at doing a Thanksgiving event this year. And that was one of the things, you know, you've got some of the Methodists at Elk Garden Homemakers, a lady there, and I like her. Very sweet lady, seems to be doing a good job. Can we work together? Absolutely. You know, Sharon Wicker is the co-pastor of Word Victory, you know, Rod and Sharon out here. I think world of them. But, you know, I'm not gonna, that's the way they believe, that's okay. You know, if they're winning people for Jesus, I support them. Do I agree with them? No, that's why I'm Baptist. That's, you know, do we always agree? I don't agree with all the things the Baptists do. But here we are. Anything else along those lines? Is that cleared up?
It does, yeah, I'm good.
Church administrator shall provide administrative support to the pastor, assist with organizational conferences, meetings, other events, and assist in provision of services to the members and other organizations. The church administrator will attend committee meetings at the direction of the senior pastor. And it goes through the duties of the administrator, church members, scheduling the calendar, including weddings, showers, non-church social events, forum management, handling incoming, outgoing mail, social media, website management, one-call management, bereavement, tracking visitor information, correspondence, coordinating activities and trips, church events, simple accounting of the budget, bill pay, ordering materials, and any other church-related task as assigned by the pastor.
He uses that last sentence. That has to be on the job description.
Well, that was, when we were doing this, Steve Dow was on the personnel committee, and Steve said, he said, all my deputies, he said, they're under their contract, you work at the will and pleasure of the sheriff. And I said, I like it, we need to make sure we put that in there, so we did. And, but no, if you'll look at my job description, Clyde's job description, to me, it don't have anything compared to Veronica does a lot, and I am not a organized person, at all, at all.
If you don't believe that, go look at his desk.
Yeah, if you don't believe that, go look at my desk, it drives Veronica nuts.
But I asked you to find something, you can pick it up and say,
Yeah, I can, or I can call Veronica out, say, if you'll go sit in my chair on the right-hand side, under that middle stack of papers, somewhere in the middle.
10 deep.
10 deep.
My sister's like that, really, she can tell you, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
It would kill me to have to work in her office, but she can tell you exactly what's there.
Yep.
So, what's the one call management?
One call is, are they saying that? You know.
Oh, we're not, we'll get you on.
One call is a system we've got, like when, have y'all ever got a call from the church? Because you're not, that answers.
Okay, I guess the automatic call.
It's automatic call. Like if something like, we were going to Hurley, so every evening I would give updates on Hurley and, you know, if we needed more people, less people, no people.
We use it for like inclement weather and we're not, we call off the service. I'll call everybody.
That gets it.
Yep.
The go team, when they go over.
Go team. And there's branches of, like, we can, and, you know, Veronica, Nora does choir, so Nora can have her own little choir group. We can send out a call to everybody in the church. Or leaders can, like if you need to get a hold of everybody for the kids play, we can set you up a group, and everybody that is in that, you can call and say, hey, something's come up, can you have practice this evening, or whatever, you know.
That way you don't have to call everyone.
Yeah.
One call is utility located for digging.
Yeah.
Well, you do one call.
Well, you don't want to.
Understand.
You know, they just had one person in church now.
Any,
There's one call.
any questions there? Schedule and calendar, Veronica does all that. You know, a lot of people, and there's a couple things that we'll go through, like weddings. I'm the only one that can perform a wedding here at Rosedale. No outside pastor, any other pastors can do that. There's a couple reasons for that. One, that was one of the biggest hurdles that I faced when I come here as pastor. And it's not a bad thing, it just is the way it is. Anytime you go and you work somewhere getting used to your bosses or your, you know, in my case, the church, or, you know, there's going to be hiccups along the way. But that was one of the first things that we come to. I've been doing, I've had a couple weddings since I've been here, and somebody asked what I was doing, and I said, well, we had a wedding here Saturday. Somebody said, well, you didn't get the paper filled out. I said, I didn't know there was a paper. So, you know, it was just that communication thing, stuff I didn't know that they had, you know, and vice versa. So, it was $500 to have a wedding here, and it cost $500, and I forget, there was a whole, and of course you had that, there was a list of rules and regulations. Well, there was a committee, a wedding and shower committee, and all of it, you had to have all your music turned into the music department, they had to approve the music. To me, it was a big, long process. Now, there was a reason for that. Again, you know, years ago, 20 years ago, there was a split at Rosedale. What was happening, our church was actually in some of the bridal magazines as a wedding venue. And so it had got, there was some of the members and stuff that had gotten to a point that they turned the church into a business. They were catering down here, and it had gotten to where it was a big thing. So the church stepped up and said, well, we've got to cut some of this out.
Was it $500 even if you were a member here?
Yes. Yep. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure. So, weddings are a huge part of ministry, huge part of ministry. There are several couples in our church that are here today that weren't in church, because, you know, the doors were open here and I was able to do their wedding and conduct their wedding, and that's what got me. So weddings are a huge part of ministry. So I said, this isn't going to work, when I figured out the process and all that. And so we were in a meeting, and we were trying to iron this out. And I said, you can't charge with the church. And somebody said, well, you know, you've got to control blah, blah, blah. And I said, listen, I was like, if you're charging for a church, you're renting God's house. You become a landlord for God's house. And everybody's like, you know, that's right, that don't sound good. And I was like, yeah. So let's back up here. So weddings now, that's when a lot of that homosexual marriage type stuff was coming through. A lot of the churches had went to a point that they put it in their constitution that the church could only do a wedding for a man and a woman and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's all well and fine, but it's not going to hold water. When it really comes down to it, it's not going to stick. A church would be sued because of discrimination. And so what I come up with, I said, we're going to put it in our bylaws. There's a business meeting that we've got the records of. I'm the only one that can do a wedding. And they said, well, what's that going to do to you? I said, well, if they put me in jail for not doing a wedding for some reason, I said, there's still not going to be a wedding at Rosedale Baptist Church because I'm not going to do it. I was like, can they sue me? Yeah, they could probably personally sue me. But it won't destroy the church. So with that, we come up and we decided that it was just easier for me to say, and what we do now is a $300 security deposit. And that security deposit is refundable if they use the church. And I know this gets into a lot of, you know, we do, you know, there's people that have birthday parties here, it's still $300. And people say, well, you know, you're getting the money back. If you take care of it, you're getting the money back, so it's free. But, you know, we did have to put something in there in case something got tore up, something got messed up, so that's where we're at there. Shares, church social events, all that stuff. If you're renting a building, there's stuff. We talk about form management. There's reimbursement forms. You need to probably speak on this. I don't know.
To reserve any kind of room or for any kind of event, like brotherhood meetings, young heart meetings, stuff like that, you have to fill out a form to reserve the church. Let me know, put it on the calendar. There are reimbursement forms. There are medical liability forms. If a group takes their group outside of the church on a trip, we have to have a form stating that they're going on a trip. We have to have the medical liability forms for everybody involved. Now all these forms are located at the top of the stairs here in the corner where the mailboxes are. There's a table. All the forms are there in folders. I know there's probably one of these.
There probably is. I kind of get you on the spot. And when we first started some of this, everybody's like, well, we got to fill out a form for everything. Well, we know that in order to get stuff on the calendar, it's easier for us to, like we feed every other Thursday night, we feed Honorary football team. So Honorary football team actually comes here, and it's the outreach ministry of the church. So if we had Honorary football team feeding Honorary football team on Thursday night, and the men's group says, well, we're meeting Thursday night, the men's group gets here and here's Honorary. So this creates a lot better situation that Veronica can say, well, you know, you need to have it scheduled so we don't have conflicts and all that. It just makes it simple. Any questions on administrator? All right, that gets us into committees. There's two different types of committees. There are special committees and standing committees. Standing committees is a committee that is elected every year. They are by the nominating committee. And these standing committees, flower committees, they kind of take care of flower arrangements. They're in charge of hanging the greens at Christmas. They do all the Christmas decorating and that type of stuff. I'm going to go through a lot of these committees because most of them are pretty self-explanatory. If you have any questions, just stop me. Board and Supper Committee, they get the communion ready. Building and Grounds Committee, they're the ones that kind of look over the church, do any repairs, maintenance, anything like that. Nursery Committee, of course, does the nursery and takes care of Bible buddies and all that stuff. Benevolence Committee, we get calls all the time needing electric bills, water bills, that type of stuff. There's paperwork that they fill out and that gets sent to the Benevolence Committee. Kitchen Committees, they maintain the kitchen and take care of all the dinners and banquets and all that stuff. Any kind of food here at the church. Children's Church Committee, study the need, do what?
So we currently don't have.
Yeah, that's really not.
Is that different for Bible buddies? Children's church?
We kind of do,
Nursery committee kind of.
that's kind of, that's what I was thinking, I don't, that's probably one of these things that we need to look at.
That's what we call Bible buddies.
Bible
like
studies, children's church.
the kids leave and go do a lesson, we call it children's church. That's what, when I see those words, that's what I think of.
Presently, nursery committees take care of that, isn't it? Okay. In COVID, a lot of times what's happened is people just took it because somebody needed to do it. And, you know, we've just kind of passed it off. The right committee may not be in place right now. Sound and lighting, of course, they take care of all the, anything to do with audio-visual stuff. Baptism committee, they just more or less help me get people in the water, baptize them, that type of thing. It's usually Kenny and Marquita. They have to always have to kind of do that.
No, Kenny Marquita's Lord's Supper, Alicia is back.
Okay. Constitution and Bylaws Committee, that's who brings what we've been reading together. Who's going to be on that? There's some appointed people such as chairman of the deacons and the clerk, and we've got 3 at-large members. Convention messengers, of course, we are part of the Southern Baptist Convention, Virginia Baptist Convention, and the New Lebanon Baptist Association. So make a note that needs to be reworded on number 11. And I say that because we're part of the General Baptist, General Baptist General Association of Virginia. Wasn't coming. So we have to appoint messengers to each of those to represent Rosedale at business meetings with those associations. Finance Committee, that is in charge of budget. Transportation Committee, Leadership Planning Committee, Leadership Committee is appointed by pretty much your chairs, all your committees and your positions. So all those positions, we meet once a month, and it's just to kind of keep everybody on the same page and keep everybody, communication is key. And so that's just kind of keep it. We usually go through the calendar, see what kind of plans are coming up, what needs to go. Safety and security, and of course that's just security of the church. Personnel Committee, this is a long committee, but basically anytime anybody gets hired, it's through this Personnel Committee. There's responsible for personnel management. This committee is also, if possible, should include church members who have experience in personnel matters, finance, and leadership roles. So we got 3 at-large church members and chairman of the deacons and finance chair. Nominating committee, that is who? That is Director of Music, Sunday School Director, Brotherhood, WMU, the church clerk, the chairman of the deacons, and 4 non-deacon members that will serve a 1-year term. So they nominate the positions for all committees. Youth Advisory Committee, these are people that work with the youth and youth director, and like if we had a youth pastor, if I'm the pastor, youth pastor, and youth director will serve advisory capacity to this committee. If we had a youth pastor, this would kind of be their deacon in a sense. That's who would help them. And then special committees, at any time we can call a special committee. We had the FEC committee, we had the facility expansion committee when we were coming up with blueprints and ideas about the building and the church and stuff and how to expand. We called together a facility expansion committee. When that job was done, that committee just automatically dissolves. So it's not something you don't have to keep repeating. Like a pulpit committee, that's kind of changed the personnel committee, but
School research.
preschool research committee, that kind of, we looked at that about how we could do that. That is a stand-up committee that will not change till it's dissolved. Any questions on those committees?
So to serve on a committee, you have to be a member.
You have to be a member. And the reason for that is it gives you voting power. If you are on a committee, you then vote. In order to have voting power, you have to be a member.
So do the committees ever accept volunteers, or you can't volunteer either?
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I'm wanting to change. I'm wanting to go, and this is what the Constitution Committee is working on, I'm wanting to go to a system, if it doesn't involve doctrine, then we appoint a person. Kitchen committee, for example. I don't know that you really need doctrine for a person to serve roles. You know, that's not a doctrine position. If you want to volunteer, I think we need the hospitality director of hospitality. Just appoint one person and let them get whoever they want to help. Now, if it involves doctrine, you know, if you're coming up with personnel committee, that needs to be a member. Constitutional bylaws, that's dealing with what we believe, our belief system, our structure. You know, that needs to be in place. Nursery committee, that stuff needs to be in place.
Jeff, I think that's one area where I've been to the future with, and since we've been here and everything, I know we've talked about how, about being in these on committees and stuff. Is that, I've been on the kitchen committee and I've been off, because they say, no, you can't be on, you can't be in there. You're not a member and you can't serve there. So, you know, it's sort of been a, no, yes I can, no I can't, so
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I heard the same thing with like the nurseries.
yeah.
Do
I mean,
what?
not that I have, but I've heard the same thing with like a nursery. That yes you can, no you can't. That's the reason I asked, is
Yeah.
because
it says, all committee members will be active members of RBC.
Yeah, in order to serve on a committee, you have, but now the thing with the nursery, is that you can serve in the nursery, but you're not actually on the committee.
Right, so you can serve in the kitchen, but you're not on the committee.
Yep.
So that's the reason I asked, did you have to be a member to be on the committee?
Yes.
And did they accept volunteers?
And like, you know, like, I mean, and it really depends, a lot of times, that decision depends upon your chair of that committee. Sometimes the committee chair says, no, we're strictly members only.
So the chair is really the person who makes that call unless you change something in your bylaws.
Yep.
But now, when it goes to cleaning up after a meal, we'll accept any help.
Whether you're a member or not.
Whether they're-
That's right.
And that's something, that's where we see a lot of confusion, and you're right, you know, you take, you know, Carol with you in the kitchen, some people are so scared to death of, well, somebody's gonna say something if I allow a non-member in the kitchen. Nobody cares who's washing dishes. I mean, and I would look, I mean, some of this stuff I see is silly, I guess is probably the best word if somebody's gonna fuss at you for washing dishes because you ain't a member, I mean, that's, that's silly. You know, and that's one of the things, going back to what Deidre said, as far as working in the nursery. You know, I think we need to, and that's one of the things that I've always advised them. I was like, you need to have a member in there. You know, because you become a teaching position. Bible school, that's one of the, you know, one of the things that, you know, Bible school, there's nothing in here that says you have to be, in order to teach, you have to be a member. And that's one of the big hiccups that we've had. Now, in order to teach Sunday school, it's stated, in order to teach Sunday school, you got to be a member here. Nowhere else does it talk about teaching position, and that's kind of a lapse in this. So Bible school, sometimes that's, you know, a lot of times I'm over Bible school. I'm the Bible school director, so I will use non-members in teaching positions. But I know them, I've vetted them. You know, I know the,
You would bet that's the,
yeah,
that's the bottom line.
that's the bottom line. And
But I think too, that's where people who may not be members get confused because they may want to volunteer to do something.
And then they think they
But
can't.
then, if they can't volunteer, they're trying to understand more about the church by volunteering.
yeah,
Well, here's one question. So, this may be, some people may understand it,
No.
but it's the nursery. Do you have to be on the committee to be in the nursery? Or is there like is there a nursery schedule that you have members that AB's, you know,
If we schedule,
week 1,
Yeah.
week 2, week 3, week 4 of the month?
That you said if we're members,
As members or as
volunteers.
volunteers or parents? That's, I don't think that's,
Like,
you,
can the
that's the
nursery
question.
director schedule a non-member to keep the nursery ones in?
yes, yes,
They can.
yes.
Okay. But that needs to go through the process.
Yep.
And not just, okay, so-and-so's not here today.
Yep.
Your kid's here, you stay with the rest of them?
Also, in specific to the nursery, we went through this at the Methodist Church. It was a big deal. It was during when a lot of the like sexual abuse cases and things came out in the Catholic Church.
Right.
Everybody that worked in the nursery or taught, well, they had to go through safe sanctuary training.
Yeah.
And you had like Emily, you know, she wasn't 18, but she was old enough to like watch the nursery and had done it for years and was helping a lot during the church. Well, then all of a sudden they wouldn't let her because she wasn't 18 and she hadn't done safe sanctuary sanctuary training, so like it turned into it was a big deal to watch the nursery
It was an ordeal.
at the Methodist church, which I understood what they
I
were
do.
trying to do, but
Yeah.
it just, and I think it came from misunderstandings of like people not knowing where the lines were drawn and who could do what, which is just what happens when there's some gray area.
Well, and it is, and there's nothing that's perfect. And that is one, and, you know, that's one thing that is different between the two also, is because the pastor of the Methodist Church had to put that into place, because that come down from,
Top down.
yeah.
Yeah,
See, that's not the case here.
yeah.
You know, the Virginia Baptist may have a training on safe sanctuary. It's our choice whether we
Whether or not
want
you want
to,
to
you
do
know,
that.
do that or not.
When you say that you're working on having things changed or updated, is that something that happens at a certain time of the year, or is this like a living, breathing document
This is a living, breathing document.
that can be
It
updated?
can be changed tomorrow.
So like one of the areas that could be added is volunteers and clarification for people who don't volunteer.
Yeah,
That might make
yeah.
it cleaner.
And that's one of the things that we're working on, because if we move to a system of a non-doctrinal committee, and you just appoint a director, it's up to that director, whether he or she, you know, they can get whoever, whenever they want.
So, I think in my engineering world, we run flow charts.
Yeah.
A good flow chart.
A good flow chart.
Committee flow chart
Yep.
would, I mean, I think it would save
I agree
you
with you.
a lot of headache as far as committee work.
Well, and it makes it clear for someone who may be the director of the kitchen committee to say, okay, I have a volunteer, and yes, they can volunteer today.
Yeah,
Yes.
or they can do this, no, they can't do this.
And I understand the doctor position and all that, but I think at some point, the volunteer side comes in and the outreach, reaching other people. I think that's a key part that some people may get their toes stepped on. Not saying you did or didn't, but, you know,
Yeah.
somebody that don't understand the system that comes in cold.
Well, I think,
And they're trying to help, but, you know, they're like, well, you don't understand the committee process. Maybe they don't, but, you know.
It's
that
not
may
their
turn in-
fault.
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's just a lack of communication, lack of understanding.
well, if you're trying to gain members, you know, I was blessed this summer by getting to help with Bible school, but if you had not asked me to do that and I knew that I could do it, like, membership may not be something I would be considering right now, because I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity to serve and get to know people, and so I do think, like Deidre said, people that maybe are considering joining want to volunteer and do things to learn more about the church, or just get involved and make relationships and that kind of thing, so that opens that up
It does.
for that.
It does.
And not that it kept me from coming back, but I had filled out the volunteer form for vacation Bible school when I sent, and I was told, well, you're not a member, you can do it. So that's where the confusion comes in, is people who do want to volunteer in.
Yeah, and see, that's something
Makes it
I
complicated.
I don't understand that at all.
And
How that they told you you couldn't. That,
I don't either, but it didn't keep me from coming back.
right.
Yes.
But I didn't,
Yeah, and in that process, people that understand the committee process can shortcut.
well,
Shortcut, you know, she got to shortcut it off
Yeah.
before maybe you knew or the director
yes,
knew.
yes.
Yes.
And I think that happens a lot, and a lot of times you have somebody that, and I don't mean this in a bad way either, but you've had somebody that's been here for 20 years, and they say, well, this is a committee. Well, because this is a living, breathing document, that may have been the way it was 10 years ago.
Yes.
And they're not aware of the change. And I'm finding that out.
Are we getting you behind schedule for these classes with all these questions?
No, I mean, I think that's what we need. I think it's what,
Okay, so here's my next question. they complete the document, what's the approval process on that?
The committee will take it under advisement, like we'll, change the Constitution Committee.
Constitution, okay.
Because this is a Constitution. It goes to the Constitution Bylaws Committee, they take it under advisement. They come up with a, whatever that advisement is. Veronica will print it up, and it goes before a business meeting, and the church votes on it. And usually how it goes, like the copies that y'all got are there's a book up there that's probably that thick. It's got every constitution that the church has ever had. So like under this, I'm just going to take just read section 2 on page 21, midweek services, prayer meeting. There will be a midweek service for prayer Bible study. Let's say we decide we're not going to have, all right, here's a good situation. That, and me just thinking about that kind of binds the services. That's saying that we have to have a Bible study on Wednesday night. Well, starting in October, it's not going to be so much a Bible study as it is just preaching, because our Bible study is going to move back to Sunday night. So, legally, I would be out of order under our Constitution. I mean, talk about that, I just now read it.
So you need a legal constitution review committee.
Yeah. So,
Where are we out of shape?
yeah, where are we out of shape? So, that would, with that, so if I really needed, if somebody really come and says, listen, we gotta have Bible study on Wednesday night, that's what the Constitution says. For 6 weeks, I'm hoping, and I hadn't thought about it until we just now read that, I'm hoping for 6 weeks I can get by with it and go back to Wednesday night on Bible study on Wednesday night. But if somebody said, as a member, no, you are out of
It would have to be looked at.
it would have to be looked at. You're out of order. We have to have prayer meeting and Bible study on Wednesday night because that's the Constitution.
Anything said, we know who was in class though.
More agreed upon by the committee.
Yeah.
If you throw that in there, you're good.
Yep.
But you don't want to take everything quick to get it.
No.
I don't think that.
No, you're right. You're right.
More agreed upon. It's some directive. You got the next small here.
And I know you're probably going to go over this, but can I jump forward to your next meeting and just ask a quick question?
Yes.
So in some of the churches that I've attended, you had to be a member if you stayed for the business meeting.
Yes.
And if we weren't, we always left. But what is the position at Rosedale Baptist Church? I mean, if people are coming and they are tithing and giving their money, and they want to know what the business is of the church, is that open for them?
It is open.
You have to ask for permission to attend.
No, anybody can attend the business meeting. You can't vote, but anybody can attend. And I hate business meetings. I absolutely hate a church business meeting. Everything's always went good here. Everything's always went, we've got a good church. There's nothing that I just hate going into a business. And but I've always wanted to be transparent. That's like any of these committee meetings. Like anybody can, the only meeting that you can't come to, and you can come to part of it, but the only meeting that anybody can't come to is these.
Yesterday.
Because there's a period of time there that we set aside to talk about spiritual situations in the church. Sometimes Mike just sits in there and eats ice cream.
Jeff sits in there and talks about stretching the truth.
Is that gospel now?
That's gospel. Mike says, I've got pictures of Mike eating ice cream. But that is, that's the situation.
She got that something.
But any meeting, whatever it is, anybody can come. That's one thing that I've always wanted to be fully transparent in is open meetings. But yeah, as far as that is, anybody can come to a business meeting, you can't vote. You know, you can't discuss. If something come up and you disagreed with it, you can't stand up in a business meeting and say, hey, this is how I feel about it. This is gonna come out a lot hatefuler than it is, but it doesn't matter how you feel about it, because you have no voice at that time. Is that?
No, I understand, but I have seen it at both ways.
Oh, I have too. I have
Where
too.
the pastor actually, or the moderator actually requests
Yep.
that if you're not a member to leave. And I've seen it where even a non-member has vocalized their opinion in a business meeting.
And that's not good.
No.
That's not good.
I was just curious.
Yeah, you can be there, but you can't speak. All right.